The Russian troops displayed remarkable discipline and determination as they advanced through the challenging terrain and confronted well-fortified positions. One of the notable aspects of the Brusilov Offensive was the implementation of innovative tactics. Brusilov utilized shock troops, specialized assault units, and small infantry squads to penetrate the enemy's defenses and exploit weaknesses. These units, armed with grenades, flamethrowers, and close-quarter combat skills, infiltrated enemy lines, disrupted communication, and caused chaos among the defending forces. The Russian troops demonstrated exceptional courage and resilience in the face of heavy enemy resistance. They engaged in fierce close-quarter combat, storming enemy trenches and fortified positions. The offensive witnessed brutal fighting, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Nevertheless, the Russian forces pressed forward, overcoming numerous obstacles and capturing significant stretches of enemy territory. One of the key strengths of the Brusilov Offensive was the ability of Russian commanders to adapt and exploit opportunities on the battlefield. They displayed flexibility in their decision-making, capitalizing on breakthroughs and adjusting their tactics based on the evolving situation. This agility allowed the Russian troops to maintain momentum and sustain the offensive's success. As the offensive progressed, the Russians achieved several significant victories. They captured numerous fortified positions, inflicted heavy casualties on the Austro-Hungarian and German forces, and pushed deep into enemy territory. The rapid and decisive nature of the offensive caught the Central Powers off guard, leading to confusion and disarray among their ranks. However, the execution of the offensive was not without challenges. The Russian army faced logistical difficulties and shortages of supplies, hindering their ability to fully exploit their gains. Additionally, the lack of coordination and support from the other Allied powers limited the reinforcement and further advancement of the Russian troops. Nevertheless, the execution of the Brusilov Offensive showcased the effectiveness of General Brusilov's strategic planning and the determination and resilience of the Russian troops. It demonstrated the potential for success through innovative tactics, swift maneuvering, and relentless assaults. The offensive marked a significant turning point on the Eastern Front, inflicting heavy losses on the Central Powers and reshaping the dynamics of the war. Achievements and impact. The Brusilov Offensive achieved remarkable success for the Russian Empire. It inflicted heavy casualties on the Central Powers, causing significant manpower and morale losses. The offensive also compelled the Austro-Hungarian forces to divert troops from the Italian front to defend their eastern territories. The Russian army made substantial territorial gains, capturing large parts of Galicia and Bukovina, and pushing deep into enemy territory. The Brusilov Offensive achieved remarkable successes and had a profound impact on the Russian Empire and the overall course of World War I. Its achievements reverberated both on the Eastern Front and beyond, influencing the military, political, and strategic landscape of the time. One of the primary achievements of the Brusilov Offensive was the infliction of heavy casualties on the Central Powers. The Russian forces dealt significant blows to the Austro-Hungarian and German armies, causing immense manpower and morale losses. The offensive shattered enemy lines, capturing tens of thousands of prisoners and seizing vast amounts of war material. The scale of the Russian success was unparalleled on the Eastern Front, and it shook the confidence of the Central Powers. The territorial gains made during the Brusilov Offensive were also substantial. The Russian army captured large parts of Galicia and Bukovina, territories that were of great strategic and economic importance. These gains not only provided valuable resources and industrial centers but also served as a buffer zone against potential enemy incursions into Russian-held territories. Furthermore, the Brusilov Offensive forced the Austro-Hungarian forces to divert troops from the Italian front to defend their eastern territories. This diversion of resources weakened the Austro-Hungarian war effort and provided respite to the Italian army, which was locked in a grueling struggle with the Central Powers. The offensive also disrupted the coordination between the Central Powers, as German reinforcements had to be redirected to bolster the crumbling Austro-Hungarian front lines. In addition to its immediate military impact, the Brusilov Offensive had significant political consequences. The success of the offensive boosted morale within the Russian Empire, revitalizing national spirit and providing a much-needed respite from the internal unrest that had plagued the country. It also increased the prestige of General Brusilov, elevating him to a position of national hero and inspiring confidence in his leadership. However, despite its initial achievements, the Brusilov Offensive faced limitations and challenges that ultimately diminished its long-term impact. The Russian army, plagued by logistical difficulties and shortages of supplies, was unable to sustain the momentum of the offensive. The lack of coordination and support from the Allies, particularly in terms of reinforcements, prevented the Russians from fully capitalizing on their gains and exploiting the weakened enemy. Moreover, the subsequent events of the war, including the Russian Revolution and the collapse of the Russian Empire, overshadowed the accomplishments of the Brusilov Offensive. The internal turmoil within Russia and the subsequent withdrawal from the war undermined the long-term strategic impact of the offensive. However, its achievements and the lessons learned from the successful execution of innovative tactics would have a lasting influence on future military strategies. In conclusion, the Brusilov Offensive stands as one of the most successful and devastating offensives of World War I. Its achievements in terms of inflicting heavy casualties, capturing territory, and disrupting enemy coordination had a profound impact on the Eastern Front. Though its long-term impact was hindered by logistical challenges and political developments, the offensive showcased the potential for strategic brilliance and tactical innovation to reshape the course of the war. Challenges and limitations. Despite its initial successes, the Brusilov Offensive faced several challenges and limitations. The Russian army was ill-equipped to sustain the momentum of the offensive due to logistical difficulties and shortages of supplies. Additionally, the lack of coordination and support from the other Allied powers, particularly in terms of reinforcements, prevented the Russians from fully capitalizing on the gains. The Brusilov Offensive, despite its significant achievements, faced numerous challenges and limitations that affected its overall effectiveness and long-term impact on the Eastern Front. These challenges stemmed from logistical constraints, strategic limitations, and the evolving dynamics of the war. One of the primary challenges encountered during the offensive was the immense logistical strain placed on the Russian army. The vast distances, inadequate transportation infrastructure, and limited resources hindered the timely delivery of supplies and reinforcements to the advancing troops. This logistical shortfall impeded the ability of the Russian forces to sustain their momentum and fully exploit their gains, ultimately limiting the offensive's impact. Furthermore, the Brusilov Offensive faced strategic limitations in terms of coordination and support from the Allies. Despite the objective of diverting German reinforcements from the Western Front, the Russian offensive did not receive the expected level of support from their French and British allies. The diversion of resources to the Eastern Front was limited, which meant that the Russian forces had to rely primarily on their own capabilities to achieve success. This lack of coordinated support constrained the offensive's potential and prevented it from achieving even greater strategic results. Another significant limitation was the inability of the Russian army to capitalize on the initial breakthroughs and exploit the weakened enemy effectively. While the offensive achieved substantial gains and inflicted heavy casualties, the Russian forces struggled to maintain the offensive's momentum due to a lack of reserves, exhaustion, and stretched supply lines.